Welcome everyone, it's Watercolour Wednesday again, and here I'm bringing you week 3 of my Back to Basics series. So today I'm going to take you through the 3 different methods of applying washes. I'm going to take you through it step by step with all the instructions you need, and I'm just going to give you a quick recap of the 2 videos you may have missed. In week 1 of this Back to Basics series we looked at the colour wheel, mixing from primaries. We created 2 colour wheels, one warm, one cool. So if you missed that one, check out the comments below and I'll give you a link for that. And in week 2, last week's episode, I did different ways of mixing. So 4 methods, 2 in the palette and 2 on the page. And that's a super one if you're looking at improving your mixing skills. So without any further delay, let's get into the video. Okay, so the tools you'll need for today's class are a sheet of watercolour paper taped down to a board, so that's masking tape, a spare little scrap of watercolour paper as well, just to test your colours on. You're going to need a couple of brushes. I've got 2 round brushes. One is a number 8 and one is a number 4. A pencil and ruler are really handy too. I've got my cloth to wipe my brush on. I have 2 pots of water. Always have 2 pots, one for cleaning your brush that gets mucky and one to keep clean that you're going to use to mix your colours with. And then obviously we have my palette and my paints as well. So let's get started then. First of all, you can see on my paper I've already drawn out 3 different sections. So there are 3 boxes. In the top box I'm going to show you the first of the wash techniques, which is just the basic flat wash, which is really useful. The second I'm going to do the graded wash, so that's transitioning from dark to light. And the final wash is variegated, and that transitions from one colour gradually to a new colour. So to begin with, wet your brushes, and I'm going to start off with the flat wash, and I'm using magenta. So I'm just going to pop some water down. Oh, it's not a very big area, so I've just popped some water down there, and I'm going to add some of the pigment from my magenta. There we go. Now it looks quite dark on the palette, but actually if I show you on paper, that's very pale. So I'm going to go a bit stronger than that. I'm going to add in a little bit more pigment. And what you want to do when you're creating a flat wash is thoroughly mix the colour in the palette. Even though I'm not creating a colour by using 2 other colours mixed together, even though this is just one colour, because I've added it to my palette and I've added water to it, you want to make sure that that's thoroughly mixed together, because otherwise when you apply it to the paper you might get a lighter patch and a darker patch. If you thoroughly mix that pigment into the water, then you will get a nice, smooth, consistent wash. So that's thoroughly mixed. I'm using my large brush to make things easier, and just placing my brush down from top left, nice smooth motions from left to right, right to left, to fill that square. I'm not going to be worried too much about how neat it is. I'm just going to fill that square. I've actually got enough paint in my brush to do the entire section in one go, which is super. And there we go. So that is the first section covered, and you can see that it's a smooth application of paint over that entire area. There's no puddles. If I hold it up to the camera, you can see there aren't any puddles on the surface. It's just got a nice sheen because it's still wet. And that's the first application method done. So that's a flat wash, which is great for many different things during watercolour painting. Now, so the graded wash, like I said, is one colour, but it starts out dark and it gradually gets lighter. Now it could go dark from top, lighter to the bottom, or left to right. It's entirely up to you how you want to approach this. So first of all, I've just got water on my brush, and I'm going to pick up, I'm using sap green for this. pick up some pigment just on my brush and just seeing how dark. So let's pop some water in that. So I want to create a nice colour, a nice even, again, thoroughly mixed on here. But to begin with, I'm just going to, I'll bring my palette across. I'm mixing up, I want a dark consistency of paint, a thicker pigment on my brush to begin with, so that I have a darker top section that gradually fades to light. So if I bring that across now, can you see that that's a bit thicker in consistency, so therefore the colour is darker. So the more water, the paler the colour, the thinner the paint. So I have a little bit of the watered down on my palette and I have a thicker consistency paint directly on my brush. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing again, starting at the top left and moving my brush from left to right. Each time I'm coming back into what I've just done to get a smooth application, and I'm just going to go into my slightly lighter colour now and drag that down, and I'm going to add some more water onto my brush, so I really want to pale this up. So now I've got water and a watered down version of the green on my brush. And then I'm going to drag that all the way to the bottom like that. And I can lift off that little bit of excess paint down the bottom just with a damp brush. Just lift that off so we don't get a puddle down there. But you can see that that's gone from a nice deep sap green, gradually getting lighter down the square until we get a nice pale green at the bottom. So that's your basic graded wash. Okay, and then for the final application we're looking at a variegated wash. Now that means going from one colour and gradually changing into a second colour. So for this one I'm going to start with Cadmium Red at the top, and we're going to slowly transition to Cadmium Yellow at the top and slowly transition to Cadmium Red at the bottom. So let's get some of those going on the palette. So a little bit of water down, pick up some pigment on my little brush. I want this to be reasonably thick. That's quite nice. That's the Cadmium Yellow. And then with my second brush, which is my larger brush, I'm just going to take off the excess water. I'm going to go into the Cadmium Red. Let's pop a bit of water on the palette. Now I haven't pre-wet these paints, so they are dry, so it's taken me a little bit of rubbing on that surface to pick up the pigment. But there I have the Cadmium Red. And I'll just show you that here. So we can afford to go a bit thicker. Let's pick up some more. There we go. So I have a patch of Cadmium Yellow and Cadmium Red. I'm going to begin with the yellow. So going back to my yellow brush, I'm going to start off exactly like before, top left hand corner, painting onto dry paper, left and right. So because it's on dry paper, it's going to dry very quickly, so you have to move reasonably quickly and be very methodical about it. Now I'm going to take a tiny bit of that red onto my yellow brush and touch the yellow that I'd previously painted down. Let's go left and right and see that changing to a sort of an orange. Pick up some more red. It's a little bit dry, I'm just going to add a bit more water. Pick up some more red. And then finally with my larger brush, which has got just the red on it, I'm going to touch that orange and pull that red down to the bottom of the square. Okay, so that's a variegated wash, and you can see we've gone from the cadmium yellow at the top, gradually changing to an orange where the two mix together, and then going down into the cadmium red at the bottom. So now they have dried, we'll just do a recap. The flat wash is the magenta. It's brilliant for lots of different things in watercolour painting, including skies. And then we have the graded wash, goes from light to dark across a section. Again, another really good one for when you're painting skies, as you want to have a sort of a lighter, less prominent blue, for example, on the horizon line in the distance, and then the sky at the top of the page, which is of course closer to the viewer, would be a darker blue. So that's a really nice one to show a distance in a painting. So that's really good. And then we have finally the variegated wash. Again, it can be used for skies. You know, these are all really good techniques for landscapes. This time transitioning from one colour to a second colour very gradually across the surface. So you will use these different techniques quite regularly within your painting. And at this point, I want to just remind you that last week, if you missed it, in week 2 of my Back to Basics, we did a colour mixing class. So this was 4 different methods of mixing colours. So 2 of them on the palette and 2 of them mixing directly on the page. So if you've missed that one, I'll pop a link below this video so that you can have a look at that. And then in week 1, we started with creating colour wheels. So we're looking at our primary colours and mixing those, creating a warm and cool colour wheel for you to be able to use as reference in the future. So have a look at the description box below this video to find those links. And next week we're going to be looking at mastering brush control, so look out for that one. Give me a like if you've enjoyed this video and you've learned something today, and subscribe and hit the bell icon too if you want to get notified next time I create a watercolour video, so you'll never miss anything. So that's super. Also, pop along to my website if you'd like to sign up for my monthly newsletter. There's always lots of great painting tips and guides and little videos as well, perfect for beginners. So I'll see you next week. Take care.